Hey everybody, Gucci with you. Welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today our guest is DJ Sandler. All right, this is a DJ. He really was a professional DJ because DJ was his call sign that I just gave him, to a professional podcaster. But I don't mean just one. I mean, here's a guy, and you're going to learn how he has 5 million downloads, okay? How to pivot from a career at the right time and turn your passion into your power. All right. We talk about giving. I mean, we'll go into, you got to give first and give often, right? And how do you give in customer service? So there's a business side of this podcast, but the reason that I really like it is you're going to get some real takeaways about how do you catch people doing the right things. So his book, Nice Guys Finish First, is true. It's a #1 Amazon bestseller. We'll get the facts behind it. It's not only a podcast, a book, but if you're interested in this business world, you'll be interested in this podcast. All right, let's dive in. Gucci and DJ. Ready? Hit it. Hey, everybody. DJ Sandler with us in the house right now. And DJ, we all have call signs here on the show. Yours was been labeled DJ, but there's a reason behind that. What's DJ mean?
I spent 30 years as a DJ in the upward market in Washington, D.C. and moved out here to California a handful of years ago, reinvented my career, but 30 years as a DJ. So I will proudly embrace the title of DJ. Thank you. Thank you, Gucci.
Whoa, 30 years. So what genre were you a DJ of?
All right. Now you're going to laugh a little bit because you're going to think there's actually a career in that. I spent 30 years doing about 2,200 bar mitzvahs. So I was the guy that was leading all of the dances on the center of the dance floor. I was the guy that was coordinating with the parents ahead of time, playing the music, enjoying my life, and literally having a party my entire 30-year career.
Holy cow, you're right. I didn't know that. I'm thinking DJ on the radio, Northern Virginia, but it's bar mitzvahs. That is so cool. So you had a job that allowed you to party every single day.
Yeah, I never got out of college. I started in college, and I spent my entire career doing that until, like I said, a handful of years ago or so.
Yeah, we'll dive into what you're doing now, which I think is going to be super exciting for everybody here. But I do got to just ask this question, and that is, of all the bar mitzvahs or just events that you were doing, what stood out and why? Was there one or something that just was like, oh my God, I can tell you some crazy stories about parties. I mean, the stories like people dying at events. I mean, literally dying from heart attacks on the dance floor or in the bride room or any of that stuff. So that probably would be a downer. But here's where I can actually share with you the idea that might connect that career with any business that anybody that is in your audience would be running. And that is, no matter what business that you're in, your business is about not what you do, but who you do it with and the relationships that you build. And so for me, I spent 30 years as a Bar Mitzvah DJ because I knew how to build relationships with my clients, where many guys and girls were getting in and out of the business because they're like, I can't make any money in this. I was the guy doing 85 to 100 Bar Mitzvahs a year for that period of time. And it was a good run. So customer service and relationships are key and paramount to any business experience to be successful. Well, I love that. It's a great pivot. And speaking of pivots, first off, 85 to 100 events. That's what we're currently doing on keynotes this year because it's back. Live events are in. We still do some virtual too, but and it's all about that customer service. Like you said, I like to say create an experience of a lifetime, right? For each client. But you made a pivot, and that was about 7 years ago. What was the pivot, and why is that important to our audience? Well,
I could see the writing on the wall. The writing on the wall was showing me that I was going from working 85 events, let's say, down to 80 events, down to 75, down to 60. And while it was still making a great living, I didn't just put my head in the sand and say, I wonder how I can do better in this market. I think my market, they were done. I was at that point 47 years old and in a market that's dominated by guys in their early 20s that are a lot cooler, a lot hipper, and a lot more talented than I am. And I think at some point I just said, I really want to make an impact doing something else. I enjoy this. This was a great career, but what else could I do to take the lessons that I've learned and actually put them into play to help other people that own businesses like my small business and help them to prosper?
I love the intention. And I think it's great when you have experiences that can help others, right? And make a living at it too, because it's both, right? So then what did you do? And by the way, pretty good insight, because this is 7 years ago. So that's before COVID.
Oh my
Your
gosh.
business would have been shut down anyhow.
Timing could not have been any better. In 2014, I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First. And the sequel, maybe at some point, Yes, More Mr. Nice Guy will be coming out. But okay. Nice Guys Finish First was the book. And I really wanted to teach the lessons that I had learned along the way, to teach other business owners how to do that. It's business is all about the building of the relationships, not about the stuff that you know within your industry. It really is about relationships. So I wrote this book. The book became a podcast, The Nice Guys on Business, and the podcast became just a great platform to not only promote my book and my business, but to teach me about what people that are in my audience, anonymous people, what they want too, because they're the ones that actually will guide you. So the lessons that I learned was listen to your market, have a market, understand what your offer is, and have a great message, and you will prosper, again, if you put customer service and relationships on your side.
Well, let's dive into this. By the way, congratulations on your book, and more importantly, this podcast, because it's not just a podcast. You have so many accolades. Let everybody know. I mean, how many people listen to this podcast? How is it ranked? Give us, a moment of incredible insight. Go for it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The humbling part about it is it's really challenging for me to beat my own drum, but I'm going to do it for just a second. I'll get over that part. So we have about 1,310 episodes of our show. So we've been around for about 7 years. At our busiest, we were doing 5 episodes a week, and we were new and noteworthy through Apple Podcasts. Somewhere around 5 million downloads over the years that we've been doing this, and it has been an incredible relationship builder. When I first got started podcasting, I had no idea where the money came from, and I was patient and I tried to wait, figure it out. It took us about 2 years to figure it out, but once we figured it out and turned on the gas, all of a sudden, we had everybody in our rearview mirror when it came to monetization, and that was really what I found was the strategy that many people were missing in their podcast, because you probably know as well as I do that you're around 200 episodes somewhere, or 100 episodes.
Well, a little over 100. We've been around for about a year and a half now. And by the way, I'm looking forward to connecting with you after this podcast, because I do want to learn how to monetize it. And that's not the intention of ours initially, but I do want to figure that out. So please.
Yeah. So what we discovered was that podcast production, and no offense to any production companies that are out there, but podcast production really is a commodity, and it's a race to the bottom. If you're an inexpensive guy and you have a podcast production service, a lot of people will tend to gravitate towards the least expensive, producer that's out there. The challenge with that is it's a race to the bottom, as I said, and I didn't want to be the cheapest guy in town. What I wanted to be was the best guy and the one that had the greatest impact. So we figured, all right, let's turn the corner here. Let's look at what we are trying to do with our show, which is to make money from our show. Not saying that that's the only thing. We still wanted to build great relationships, and I wanted to, have an impact on people that were listening to the show. But I needed it to serve my business too, not just my audience. If my cup is empty, I have a really hard time with giving anything to anyone. So I learned very quickly. Well, it took 2 years. That's quick in my mind. It took 2 years to understand how to fill our cup. And once we did that, we've turned on the gain, and it hasn't stopped since. And that to me is really the secret of normal guys. Now, in my mind, I know Gucci, you are a very humble guy, but in my mind, you're the hero. You spent, in Blue Angels, you did your thing, man. That's great. You served our country, incredible, and I appreciate that so much, so that I can have this freedom to say whatever I want on the airwaves. But what was happening was I couldn't exactly figure out.
Though, I do want to get. I don't look at myself as a hero, and what this story reminds me of is I was when I was a Blue Angel, I was number 7 pilot, and I'm flying for MTV. Remember when MTV first came out? It was 82.
Was
it 82?
Yeah, so I was there. Not there physically, but yeah.
This is actually 90. So they'd had about a 9-year run or 8-year run, and there was a show that was really hot called Kevin Seal Sporting Fool. Do you ever remember that?
No.
He would show up. You know what it is?
No, I've never heard of that.
So he would show up in just crazy places, right? And so we gave him a ride, on the Blue Angels. And what's interesting was, the filming crew comes down, and MTV is pretty hip, and So the first thing my plane captain does, which is so cool because I didn't tell him to do this, nobody did. Kevin comes in, he's got long hair, right? And we're all, back then I had hair, but it was short, right? and so he gets the bright idea. He sits him down. He says, Kevin, MTV, we love your show. It's great you're here, but there's a problem. He says, you can't go flying with Gucci with hair like that. And Kevin was like, and it was, you're kidding me. And he goes, no. He says, you're going to need a haircut. And I've got good news is we do barber shops right here. And some of the troops, the maintenance guys, had a little barber chair. Now they are totally riffing this guy. This is not true, right? And he goes, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a haircut. And they're filming this because everything was filmed, right? He gets in the barber chair, and instead of telling him, hey, we're kind of kidding, they give him a buzz cut.
Holy cow.
Now, not a total buzz, but they cut his hair really kind of cool. And Kevin was totally okay with it. He actually was. But the reason I bring up the story is, so he climbs in my jet, and the way it works when we take a media person flying is you don't get to meet the pilot until you're in the jet. You meet my all support crew. They teach you about ejection and all this kind of stuff. But the first time you meet myself, in this case, who's flying you, we walk out to the jet, we shake hands, and we start go flying. Now Kevin had told me that he's going to introduce certain songs because that was part of the deal. They were going to play certain songs. What is the classic one?
Danger Zone.
That wasn't out yet. Yeah, it was out. Maybe they did that. You're right. It was out. But anyhow, the thing that he says, and the whole reason I'm taking the time to tell the story is we're flying back, and I see him introducing certain songs while we're flying, right? And we're flying back, and he goes like this, just what you said. He goes, Gucci, you and your teammates, man, you guys are like rock stars. And now this is all being recorded, right? And that's not the image that the Blue Angels want to portray, right? So I'm like, well, Kevin, thank you. We don't consider ourselves rock stars. We're just professionals, because it kind of saved my ass. I mean, I didn't want to be the guy. And anyhow, my whole point is that I like what you said. I appreciate it. And I think more importantly, why you're on the show is you have so much to give to so many people. And that's what makes you a rock star, a DJ, a hero, whatever word you want to use, is by giving back to others. How do you feel about that? And how are you giving right now?
Thanks, Gucci. And I appreciate you saying that. I sometimes am, what is it called? Self-deprecating when humor probably will be my best buddy. Oftentimes it's perceived as, why aren't you just being high on yourself? Because you have accomplished a lot. I lived in a very, very generous household when it came to praise. But it also was a household that was filled with, if I didn't do something right, I have to face the consequences as well. Nobody bailed me out. So for me, I appreciate you saying that. And I was just, again, I was in a family that was really high on praise. So I wanted to give it to you, not realizing that the word hero is not the word. It's more professional. And I accept that. And I am a pro. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I like you talked about giving praise. Honestly, there's lots of ways to give. I like to say every morning I do my prayers. I do a yoga routine outside. And I always say, may I give him my time? May I give him my energy? May I give him my wisdom? But I'm now going to add something to it. And that may I give a praise to others.
That's good. That's really good.
What else would you add to giving? What other piece besides praise?
Well, I think what's interesting is I worked through this agency in DC. The name of the company was Washington Talent, and I found that management would tend to thrive in a negative environment, and that didn't sit well with me. So I had a really tough time going into the office. So I made it my practice every time I would go into the office, multiple times on that visit, to catch somebody in the act of doing something right as opposed to doing something wrong. And it's amazing how many allies that you will have. They actually will hang out around you, and they'll want to be around you because they're waiting for you to catch them doing something right. So the key to a relationship building is, I think, really that, genuine praise. You're not for the sake of praise, but genuine praise, I think, is essential. So in a way, that really is what I'm a messenger. So for me, I love using, and words of affirmation are absolutely my love language. So I definitely love using words and being a messenger to share those as well.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Now, of course, everyone, I think, and I know have heard that idea, catch someone doing something right. It's not as easy as, at least for me, as it comes across the tongue, because our brains are actually wired, I think you know this too, to see the negative, right? To see the threat. I mean, that's how we're wired. And so we have to rewire that, which we can, which is what you're teaching. But teach me and our audience. So great. I want to catch people doing things right. What are some tactics I can use?
Hey, you can start with a really low-hanging fruit opportunity for someone. Give them an opportunity that you know that they will succeed in. Empower them to make the decision when it comes to doing that task. Praise them when they have done it right, and that will be the springboard to the next thing that they're about to do. I don't want to I have a team of 12 people that do production, editing, posting, distribution, all that stuff. I don't want to manage anybody. I literally want to work 15 hours a week. And if I go beyond that, I'm challenged with, why am I working so much? And so for me, it's giving people the tools to do it on their own, empowering them. So I think it starts at a really early process by just giving them praise for accomplishing something that you know that they're going to accomplish, but it's still a good starting point for someone. They love it, and it makes you feel good giving the praise as well. So it's a double win.
Oh, I love that. So now with that, there's always a double-edged sword or two sides to the coin. And you already mentioned it in your family. They gave praise, but they also held you accountable. I'm not sure if you use that word accountable, but so tell me then, in your leadership style and the business, where does that come in when, there's always going to be a little of both, right?
Yeah, well, consequences are important. If there's somebody that's not up to the task or isn't doing it properly, I think you letting them know in a polite way and in a way that's not embarrassing for them. You certainly don't call them out or throw them under the bus in front of another 5 or 6 people. If there is a manager that they're working with, you want to make sure that you're doing it very delicately, understanding that there is a person on the other side of that. Never erase the human element from the relationship that you have. It's not a task, it's a person. So for me, I love to be able to keep people to the task of what they're up to, let them know that I didn't think that was accomplished properly, give them the tools that they need so that they can do it right next time, and let them screw up again. If you then take that task and you start micromanaging it because they messed it up the first time, then all you're doing is creating a second job, actually a second and a third job, because you got to do the task and you got to watch the person doing the task. So for me, I'd much rather tell them the right way to do it, give them the tools to do it, and let them screw up again. And if they screw up again, it's not the right role for them. So it really is the matter of 2 strikes and you might be out, but 3 strikes and you're absolutely out. Doesn't mean fire. It just means put them in a different role or find out from them what makes them happy. What are the things that they like to do? Stay in that zone of genius.
Oh, that's great. Great advice. Interesting, as you were talking, I'm thinking about the similarities between the Blue Angels and some of our debriefs and what I'm trying to teach to a lot of people out there. And it's both, right? It's what you're saying. I remember at the Naval Academy, they said praise in public and correct in private. That was something I was taught, as a college kid, which is absolutely true. And then I got into the Blue Angels. And guess what? We do it slightly differently. With the essence of what you said, there's always respect. There is the individual does matter, but we would always debrief as a table. We would debrief as an organization. And it was a very unique place in that debrief room. And there's what I call 4 key pillars to it. The first was we created a safe environment, and that came from respect. Second was check your ego at the door. Humility. Yep. Third was you got to be open and honest. So that's this honesty piece, and lay it on the table is the way I called it. And then the fourth was this accountability piece, but it was actually a step higher. It was own it and fix it, own the outcome, right? So it's never just one person. But having said all that, it was interesting. The way we did it was, yes, if someone had a real problem, you pulled them out and, talked about that one-on-one. But we tried to create a culture where you address things in an open environment. Now, having said that, it was always about the outcome and not the individual. That was the subtle nuance, right? Like you said. So anyhow, having said that, give me your perspective of that kind of debrief.
Well, I think if you set the intention properly, you create the right level of expectation. I think that really, and you have an environment where you have 5 or 6 or 7 pros sitting around a table having a conversation. The nice part about that is you've set the ground rules. As long as there is no, my dad used to call it mutual mystification. As long as there's no mutual mystification is when you expect the person that's across the table from you to understand what you're talking about, but you've never told them what you're talking about. You just expect them. There is no mind reading in business, and there's no mind reading in relationship builds. There really is. Hey, if you set the intention, you set the expectations, and then you come up with the process. And if you throw into that the idea of brainstorming, okay, how do I actually make this a better environment? Everything off the table. There is no right. It's all yes and. There's no buts. If I yes and everything, how can I make this a better environment for the next time that I go out? In your case, you're dealing in life and death also, because you're dealing in margin of error of probably centimeters or inches. So you have to be really, really sure of what you are talking about. In the world of podcasting or the world of business, there's a slightly larger variance for a mistake that you can make. You just have to be aware of what the environment is. And you mentioned a really great word, and that word is culture. If I walked into the agency and I just started throwing around to management the idea of let's all catch people in the act of doing something right, they would have probably thrown me out of my ear. But if I have it delicately, conversations one-on-one with people, not doing it as a overall business philosophy that trying to impart upon this agency, but do it because I think it will help benefit me and my business within the agency, it's a whole different story. So set the level of expectation, understand the culture that you're working in. And if it's not your culture, it's really hard to change. So you just have to deal with the culture that's been set up and just work with it.
Let's keep going on culture because you nailed it. What is a culture of nice?
Oh, man.
You have that in your book. What is
that? A culture of nice is in simple terms, it's returning your calls, being a nice guy, meaning meeting expectations, being on time for your appointments, telling the truth, not misleading your customer. I mean, those are the easy things. It's amazing how much being on time, returning your phone calls, and telling the truth can play into everything in business when it comes to relationships. There's one thing that I've learned over the years, just through my experience with the agency and now with my production business and coaching business. It's if somebody were to say to someone that knows me, hey, I tried to get in touch with Doug and he didn't return my phone call. If somebody would say that to anybody that knows me, they would say, then you didn't get the email to him, because there is no way that Doug didn't return an email, a phone call, or give you the honest answer when he returned that phone call or that email. So for me, being a nice guy is all about returning your phone calls, being on time, and telling the truth.
Wow, I love it. I love simplicity. And I think about my mom. I learned so many lessons from my parents, right? Growing up.
Yeah.
She used to say, I'll just say it. If you don't have anything nice to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. And now, having said that, I go, well, wait a minute, that's not the debrief, right? So, but I think what she was saying was what you were saying, be honest, right? And that's what they said. Be on time, which, by the way, I got to be honest, I'm working on that. I still have challenges, believe it or not. Everybody thinks, oh, you Blue Angel pilot, you're so disciplined. Well, yes, in some things, but in timing, I could be a little off. But if you notice, when you signed on, we noticed you were like 5 minutes early to the call, 4 minutes early. And we weren't still done. It was my fault. We're still preparing, but okay. Right on the minute, we called you in, right? And yep. And what I'm realizing now, and I think Belichick, or no, who said this? Nick Saban, one of the really powerful coaches, said, if you're on time, you're late. Right. And I still haven't got that message, but I'm working on it.
It is okay. If you know that you got that sign above your head that says work in progress, you're in a good spot. And if you're working with people that are forgiving people, if you made it a habit, I had a partner in a business years and years ago that would always show up 15 to 30 minutes late for the appointment. And that was just a total lack of respect. And at one point I called him out on it after doing it a handful of times. And I said, hey, if you do this, I'd rather not schedule the appointment because I have other things that are my priorities too. And me sitting, waiting for you is not one of my priorities. I respect your time. I'm just asking that you respect mine. He was never late again after I had that conversation. And he said, I am the only person that has ever called him out on it. And he is a big deal with the agency that he runs. So for me, it was like, oh man, I did the right thing. It could have backfired on me and he could have just said, F you and been done with me. But I think he respected what I said because he really knew that he should not be 15 minutes to 30 minutes late.
Yeah, that's a great example, especially when it's that large. What gave you the courage to call him out and no one else was doing that?
Well, in that particular case, that agency represented my business represented about 20% of the agency volume in that particular arena, that sub business within their overall business. So I felt like I had earned the respect. Plus, this was not the first time at the rodeo. They knew, hey, look, if Doug needs to be called upon, we're going to call Doug. And without any question, I would never ask him, hey, you got a gig for me? Okay, how much is it? Where is it? I would never. I said, book it. I will be there. That was it. I was just a get it done kind of guy. And I spent years doing that, well beyond when I needed to continue doing that, even doing free jobs for them just so that they could be exposed to a greater market. And, when I said what I said to him, it was probably a couple of years into our relationship, several meetings of lateness. And he got it. He got it. And he heard it loud and clear. And he could have pushed back, but he didn't because he knew that he was not in the right.
That's brilliant. It's good. I love that. By the way, what type of business now is it that you're in? And because I want people who are listening to this go, wow, if he can help me, if Doug or DJ can help me, and what is it that you teach in that business?
So when we started the podcast in 2014, going into 2015, on the tail end of me releasing this book, it was used to promote the book. What I found after about 6 months of time is that while people were buying the book, they weren't buying it at the level that I thought they would. They weren't buying it for, you go in and do keynote speeches probably for 50 people to 5,000 people in an audience. And I wanted
16,000 in Vegas last week.
Night. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's like a speaker's dream or a speaker's nightmare if you're like me and you're like, I'd rather have 50 to 75 people that I can actually touch everybody in the audience. The big stages are really, really challenging for me because you can only connect with those first, 3. So I was a speaker for NSA and I was really promoting my consulting business for customer service. Again, winning relationships, winning business through winning relationships. Nice guys finish first. And I found after about 6 months of that, some people wanted the book, but people were more interested in hearing me talk about my podcast and how I'm doing what I'm doing and how do I monetize this. One guy in my audience, his name is Lou. Lou reached out to me and he said, hey, can you teach me how to do what you've done with your podcast for my business? I'm like, sure. I've never done it before. Honesty. I've never done it before. But if you're willing to have a meeting with me, can we talk about how I would charge you and what results you want to get out of it?
Beautiful.
We had that meeting. We determined it was going to be $500 a month for 6 months, $3,000. Again, just trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this? I've never done this before, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And, that became the first of over 300 clients that we have brought through the process. And I didn't realize that people really weren't keyed in to my nice guys finish first management consulting program, but they wanted the philosophy, but they wanted it packaged as a podcast. So we've taught 300 plus people how to launch podcasts. And more importantly, now that you have a podcast, how to actually monetize this thing and make it, so it has an impact on your business and your life. So that's what we're doing.
So we're going to talk more about that one-on-one, but with everybody who's interested, give me the top 3 things to monetize it.
So, okay. So most people, and is it okay if I ask you a question and put you on the spot? We have not practiced this ahead of time. Exactly. Where do you think that most people think money is made from when it comes to podcasting?
I'd say the advertising around it, if you can get advertisers on it. And then I guess if you're selling a service, you're hoping that's a lead generator for you.
So you just mentioned the top 1 and the top 1 and 2 ways that people think that they can monetize their show. The challenge with normal guys like you and me, and you don't have to spill the beans here on your show, but most people don't have any more than, I would say, 100 to 200 downloads per episode. In a business where sponsorship and advertising is dictated by the amount of people that you have listen to your show, per 1,000. The average per 1,000 cost is $15 to $25 per 1,000. So if you have 10,000 people listening to your show, you might make $150 to $250 on your show in advertising. If you do a weekly podcast episode, just do the math. You're making $1,000. I don't know anybody today that can live on $1,000 a month. So the challenge was, all right, it's not going to be advertising and sponsorship, and it may not even be in products and services, because you selling, let's say, a keynote speaking spot to an audience that's listening, you're talking to an anonymous audience that doesn't know who, they listen to you and they queue up to listen to your message, but we're waiting for them. And you're totally not in the control spot. So what I would say is, why don't we focus on the golden opportunity of podcasting, which is nobody talking about it, which is your guest seat. turn guests into clients, turn guests into referral sources, turn guests into affiliate relationships, and turn guests into joint venture partners. Those 4 things make us somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 a year in business. So for me, I'd rather teach something that I know will work rather than, hey, if I said to you, hey, Gucci, give me $5,000 and let's invest in Facebook ads. What are you going to say? Like, no, it's like throwing your money into a black hole, right? I'd rather spend that money and time on the golden opportunity that most people don't even expect. The key is understanding the strategy. I can give the strategy, but if I don't teach anybody the strategy, what's the expression? You could throw water on some people and they still wouldn't get wet. Literally, I could lay out the entire strategy free for anyone and say, here's what you need to do. Go do it. They still won't do it. So my role is to help them, support them, provide accountability, community, education, the ACE method of doing the right things when it comes to podcast monetization. And that's what we have spent the last 5 years really fine tuning. And it's game on. We have 70 clients that do this and 70 clients that are in various stages of making this work for them. And it's an amazing process too.
Wow. Well, you may have 71 here soon. We'll see. But
well, that's okay. No pressure.
But it's interesting. What does ACE stand for, by the way?
Accountability, community, education. Education.
That's what I didn't get. Okay. Got it. Yeah. The, brilliant thing. What's interesting as you were talking, I threw out, I was just being honest. These are the things I've been told or believed. And yet when you started talking, I went, bingo, he's absolutely right. The relationships, like you and I will have a relationship. I just got that feeling, right?
Totally. Yeah. That's why I'm never worried about, hey, where are we going? How do I close a deal? It's not about closing deals. It's about building a relationship, having you see long enough that this guy is actually legit. I'd rather lead with, I have a friend of mine, his name is Jay Fazette, and he runs a company called JVology. And the theory of JVology, which is amazing, is joint venturing is a business of I will go first. So how do I prove value to Gucci before I want anything from him? I'd much rather give you every tool in my toolbox and say, go ahead, please, I'll help you do it. I'll share with you all the stuff. Go ahead and do it. When you're ready to have it's like I could teach you at a textbook how to fly a jet. but until you get in the cockpit, it's really hard. I get you in a simulator and that'll get you only so far. You got to get out there and do it. So for me, the accountability of having a coach, the community that we've built of other people doing it, and the education I provide, I already know it's a winning thing. I'm not looking for clients. Clients find me. And that's the beauty of what we do and how we do it.
Brilliant. I love that. And it's so natural, it's just flowing off your heart because it's the way it is. What's interesting on the real comment of, you're right about, you can't teach someone how to fly out of a textbook. Actually, you can't teach them even in simulators. When you first learn how to fly, you use a little simulators. Guess how many simulators we use on the Blue Angels?
I'm going to go with 0.
It is 0. It's 0. Your first flight is in the jet with a mentor, one of the other Blue Angels, and they're single seat cockpits. So you're flying next to each other. Actually, your first flight's an orientation ride where we put you in the back and just let you observe, right? But this is where you're actually doing it. And we have 120 training flights before newbie is ever seen in the public, right? As a Blue Angel. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, my dad wrote a book called You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar.
There you go.
And it's so true. We can't teach. You've got to be doing it, and you've got to be doing it, and you got to get bloodied knees and skinned elbows and all the things that along the way that prove to you. And you got to get, I think I said this at the beginning, you got to get your 10,000 hours in. I know it sounds excessive, but man, why would you how many people quit podcasting after 10 episodes? They've actually created a term for it. It's called pod fade. The reason that pod fade exists is because people turn around after 10 episodes and they're like, why isn't this being successful? I'm like, you're still in your podcast diapers. It's not successful because we haven't even taken the training wheels off of this thing. You're still in the garage and you won't want to be on the highway. Just give me a chance. If you're coachable, if somebody is coachable, they absolutely can make this scenario work or many other scenarios work. But don't quit after 10 episodes. You're not even 3 feet from gold. You're 3 miles from gold right now. Let me get you to 3 feet and then I can show you, just give you a taste of what it is so that Imagine being able, and I don't know what your keynote speaking cost is, but imagine having somebody sit in the guest seat that you turn into a $25,000 client because of the relationship that you built in the guest seat, and they hire you to do a keynote. And you know that you're going to go in there. You're not just going to do it, Gucci. You're going to kill it. You're going to go in there and you're going to walk away not only with the 25 grand from the keynote, but probably 5 other speaking gigs as a result of it too. And so you can't lose sight of the fact that, man, you got to get the ego metric out of the way. The ego metric is, I want more people to listen to my episode. I wouldn't care. I threw that number 5 million because it's a legit number, but I wouldn't care if I had no million people listening to my show, because my audience is not where my focus is. The byproduct of me focusing on the guest is an audience that's engaged and loving it. But the point is, build a relationship with the guest, and the other stuff is going to come too.
I love that. I love that, not just in podcasting, but in any business we're in. I would suggest the center point's always the customer. Do what's best for them, and then your products and services or whatever else you're trying to do will follow. By the way, that center point term is how we flew the Blue Angel Air Show, right? You gotta have your center point there. So a couple of thoughts hit me real quick. And one is, how do you, well, first off, just to acknowledge, I've got a buddy of mine, it's called EPX. It's where you can go online and look at it. You bring in really cool people. By the way, Doug, you might be good for this group. You bring in really people that are unique in their own field, and it becomes kind of like a best of the best mind share thing. But anyhow, one of his core values is give first, give often. Yeah. And that's what I heard you say.
Love it. It is a winning ingredient in this recipe that will make a cake work really well. It will rise. You know, you're putting in baking soda as opposed to salt. You put in the salt, it's not going to rise. You put in the baking soda, I probably just screwed up every recipe known to mankind. I don't even know where that analogy came from. But at the same time, you put the right ingredients in and you will win the business. You put the wrong ingredients in and you're like, why didn't this work? It didn't work because you started with your hand out expecting something in return for something you haven't provided yet. Go in there with no expectation of anything coming back to you. I've never gotten in a relationship where I've provided extra services and haven't found an opportunity to come back if I'm looking for the opportunity.
Got it. Hey, how do you scale yourself now? Because you obviously had figured this out. You have a business. You said you had 12 people, I think. Mm-hmm. But, I'm listening going, okay, Doug knows what he's talking about. He can coach me, right? But how do you scale your business, or how have you done it?
The term is subscription model. You put somebody into the model so that they are either being coached by you, produced by you, distributed by you, edited by you, all of the different things, and you put a price tag on it and you sell it as a monthly fee. That way you don't have to worry about, look, I could say to you, as a podcast producer, I charge X amount of dollars a month for my podcast production services. If you decide that you want to hire me as the producer, once a month on the first of the month or whatever day of the month, you're going to be hit on your credit card for X amount of dollars, the amount that we agree upon. Every month you're queuing up until you tell me stop. That's a clock that's running. I don't want to invoice people. I don't want to. The other thing that's really cool is putting them into a system that is scalable. So we use a project management software called Monday.com. It's a really, really cool project management software.
Hey, by the way, are they one of your sponsors?
No, they're actually not one of my sponsors. Right. They should be.
They should be with that. Yeah, I was just thinking.
I promote them all the time, but I would promote them anyway because it's amazing. They have this great project management that we run through, and literally, whether we have 5 clients or 500 clients, we could put this. We just need to add more people into onto our team to be able to handle the volume. From a coaching perspective, I really do find that me doing one-on-one coaching is a lot more time intensive, but it's all a part of my plan. Not everybody wants me once a week for a year of coaching. Some people want to meet with me once a month. Like I said, I think between 15 and 20 hours a week is about where I gravitate. I'd rather hang out at the 15-hour a week, work ethic rather than the 20-hour a week. But in 15 hours a week, I can coach a boatload of people, some of them in a group environment. And it's actually the group environment, the community of the ACE, accountability, community, and education. The community portion is really the area where people learn a lot, because they're only going to learn so much from me. How many times has your mom told you something, you didn't hear it, and then your friend told you the same thing? You're like, I wonder why you didn't know that, while your mom has been telling you that all along for years. So the community is absolutely a way that I could scale what I'm doing. And it has worked well. We are not looking for 1,500 clients. I think really what would be cool, we have about 70 clients now. So somewhere between 100 to 150 clients, I think would provide an amazing income, enough income to be able to support me and the lifestyle that I want to live in. And the work, the amount of commitment that I have in hours, that would be about what I would want. Beyond that, we're probably going to, at some point down the road, 100 years, sell the business. And it would be, having a subscription model, it makes it highly valuable for somebody to come in, a larger company, and take over. But we haven't even talked, we've never talked to anybody about it. We're even kicking around the idea. It just sounds kind of cool. But who knows? We'll see.
Well, I believe in planting seeds, and you just planted a powerful seed. It becomes more powerful when you do it verbally and you announce it to the world.
Agreed.
Not the whole world yet, but whoever hears this, right? And I think that's powerful, and I applaud you on that.
Thanks.
That's a good strategy. So what do you think? Let's pivot real quick from the business model to, let's call it lessons learned in life, right? Because what I'm hearing you say is there's a balance in your life between work and some other things, 15 to 20 hours a week. So what is important to you? What are some of the great lessons you've learned in life?
Yeah, I think I missed the 90s. My kids were young at the time. I had a failed marriage as a result of putting all of my work, all of my effort into my work. My weekends as a DJ were completely lost to the business. My weekdays trying to get business. I missed every event that my kids had growing up in the 90s. My kids were born in 93 and 96. So I missed a good percentage of what was going on. Early in 2000, I was divorced. And I've learned a lot of lessons from there, how to actually have a conscious relationship with someone. Met someone that is in the same space that I'm in the podcast space, as a empowerment strategist and a coach, a life coach, and have really learned a lot from her, and love the new version of me, the unapologetic new version of me. I feel is a lot more conscious, aware, and capable than the head down working unconsciously, through business, the old me.
Okay, so you just laid out
a
scenario that a lot of people, I think, could say, yeah, that's me, right? So let's unpack a little bit about personal relationships, not just business relationships. So how did you change? What did you do?
I had to make a decision. The decision is, what's more important to me? Is my family more important than my business? At some point along the way, I think my business fortunately decided for me that this is it. I'm watching the decline of my business, and I am a guy that hates making decisions. I am a horrible decision maker. I'd much rather have the universe make the decision for me than me make the decision. So oftentimes I will delay long enough so that the universe does make the decision for me. And even as something as simple as I accidentally got double booked on a couple of appointments over the course of the next couple of weeks. I don't know how it happened. It just happened. I have an assistant. I screwed up, crossed wires. I'm sure it was me, not her. And I'm like, it'll take care of itself. I'm not even going to call any of those people. Wow. So and undoubtedly what happens is the universe takes care of me because I had it on my brain. The universe took care of it. Both of those appointments got rescheduled, not anything to do with me. And it was not saying that this is going to happen all the time, but the universe will reward you if you set the intention and you put it out there. Law of attraction is a great thing. You want it badly enough, you absolutely can get it if you put your intention out there to the world.
Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper on that. Real quick story, by the way. I was at an event, and the president of USC was speaking, and the name of his book was Think Gray. And it was exactly what you just described. How it's always put out in business, make decisions quickly and all that. He's like, no, delay a decision as long as you can to get more information, all that, but not
procrastinating.
Paralysis by analysis thing either. Because there is that line when you have to make it. But I thought that was very interesting, and I subscribe to that too. I try to, as long as I can, especially strategic decisions, delay them until we've got a good plan and let the universe make it work. But when were you going to change? I mean, in that example, so at some point you can't be in two places at the same time.
Right. So I'm not going to wait 5 minutes before the appointment and reschedule it. So I would say within 24 to 36 hours, there's probably going to be some outreach from my assistant saying, hey, we've accidentally double booked this. And the other thing is, if you lead with value, hey, look, I apologize for rescheduling your podcast interview. What we're going to do as a result of this is we're going to make sure we put a commercial on our show for you because we really appreciate your flexibility here. So if you lead with value, again, I'm sorry, I probably screwed up. Take responsibility for it. Never throw an assistant under the bus. If you can, I'm sure Sugar could probably relate to this. You never want to throw anybody under the bus. And if you do, they got the keys to the washroom. They could lock that washroom up at any point, and you'll be stuck holding your private area, just trying to figure out where you're going to dump. So,
okay, that was a visual. You described it really good. I got it. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. On in regards to that, so individually, we're talking about communication on a personal level, and making that decision. So I heard you say that, intention and everyone says, I don't know about everyone says, but the secret came out, right? The law of attraction, right? The incredible book, incredible message that people have used since then. What did you find was about the law of attraction? And then there's also, in my opinion, there's a nuance that has to be there too. I don't think it's enough just to throw out this intention, right?
Yeah, got to put the action steps. You got to put the action items behind it to actually make the stuff that you want happen. If you just say, I want a Lamborghini, and you don't do anything to get you closer to the Lamborghini, if that's what you want, then you won't ever get the Lamborghini. But who can you put yourself in front of? What action items can you take? What small baby step? Because that really is all it is a series of baby steps that lead you to the, get to the moon. What baby step can I get to today that will help me get one step closer to my goals? And that's when I talk about, handling things consciously, understanding that it will come to you, but you must take action steps. And without those action steps, and communicating those action steps, you said it a little bit earlier about, hey, look, if I want this business to be bought by anybody at some point in the future, even if it's 20 years from now, if I don't start the action steps at some point, that's not going to happen. Nobody's just going to wake up one day and say, you know what? I want to buy Turnkey Podcast. Let's figure out how to make that happen. Got to put enough messages out there to the universe to come back to reward you.
So give me one example. You gave me one about the personal life intention. Give me an example of where you took a baby step. You had an intention, and then you actually took some baby steps.
Yeah. So, the baby step right here was when I started my podcast. Baby step was, I have no idea how to start a podcast. Where do I even go to figure that thing out? So I talked to a friend of mine who also was an act that was represented by the agency. His name is Strickland. I spoke to Strickland, and we decided, with his audio engineering experience and my gift of communication and relationship building, we're going to do this together, not knowing anything about it. So we just took one baby step at a time. I said, we divided and conquered. I said, Strick, your job is to figure out how to launch this podcast. My job is going to be to line up the people to get them into the guest seats so that we can have engaging conversations. It's been great conversations. Guys like, John C. Maxwell, Jeffrey Gitomer, Ariana Huffington, Gary Vaynerchuk. Ron Klain, who's Biden's chief of staff. We've had some huge names in that guest seat. And unless you put out the intention and you take the baby steps towards it, you're never going to get there, no matter what you wish for. Can't wish. You got to wish and put some action behind it. Make it happen.
Does that tie into the 24 seconds that'll change your life? What does that mean to you?
I wrote an article called, I can't even remember the name of the article, but it was all about the 24 seconds that could change your life. And it really is about placing those steps, placing those goals, placing that intention out there to the universe, but then aligning with other people. Hey, look, what's the best way? And not that I would be scared to death to get in the cockpit of a jet, a single, even a double. I just have claustrophobia. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. So for me, but if I did want to do that, where would be the place I would start? Well, now I know somebody that at least knows somebody. I could probably start somewhere. Unless you start the conversation, and I always approach things from a perspective of curiosity. So from where I'm sitting, I just want to know that if I wanted to sit in the jet, not even move, I'm going to find out, what does that feel like? What's that like? Is that something that I would be interested in? And maybe there would be an opportunity, as long as I planted the seed enough, an opportunity for me to be in that jet. So for me, that's kind of the winning component of that recipe, is making sure your intentions are known and the action steps are out there as well.
Well, I'll give you an example of how what you just said could come to fruition. So people ask me all the time, how do I get a ride with the Blue Angels? And the first thing is, you can't buy it. You can't influence people. It's not politicians. There's only one way to get a ride with the Blue Angels. And that is, you have to be a key influencer. Okay. They want to fly somebody who is going to influence others, because Blue Angels are our marketing machine. Yes, we fly jets, but it's about marketing. So you have a chance, okay, because of the impact that you currently have. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I could put you in the right person.
No, don't do it. Don't go to any.
Okay,
but if somebody wants to sit in my 65 Mustang, they are welcome to, because that sucker's in the garage about 50 feet away, and I'd be happy to give a Blue Angel a ride in my Mustang.
All right, maybe we'll flip it. That's really cool. But I love it. Don't do it. I have had a handful of people say, absolutely not. Don't do that. In fact, we were just about to. I was just talking to Nick Saban's people, and I spoke to Alabama a few years ago. The Blues were going to invite him on a ride, and he turned it down for other reasons. But I love the idea of, don't do it. Are you crazy?
Yeah, don't do it, because God, what's the expression? Be careful what you wish for. You may get it. It's like, no. I should have used a different example.
I'm with you. Hey, this has been incredible. I know that I'm going to be on your podcast here pretty soon. And I also know that people want to follow you. So as we're wrapping up, and I do have one more question, but as we're wrapping up, how can people follow you? How can they connect with you? What's the best way?
Sure. If anybody is interested in anything that we discussed today as it relates to podcasting, probably the first step for them is to get on our get one of our mini courses. It's called 5 Ways to Make Money Podcasting, and you can get that just at turnkeypodcast.com/money. And you take the course, see what it's all about, and if this is something that you think would fit in your environment, then I'm happy to take another step with you.
Hey, I love you demonstrated what we talked about. You're giving first, right? You're not only saying, here's how you contact me. You're saying, I got a gift for you, and plus you're screening, because your time's valuable, right? So you're going to want to make sure people are there. What a great gift. I'm going to get that. And I know Sugar's taking notes. We'll put it in the chat too. I always like to end the podcast around gratitude. I'm wearing this Glad to Be Here shirt. People who listen to this understand there's a depth to that meeting of glad to be here. But just right off the cuff, why are you glad to be here?
Hey, I'm happy to be here to continue learning. I feel like that work in progress sign is absolutely blinking above my head. The learning curve is tremendous, and the opportunities that have been provided to me have been great. I feel so fortunate to be able to do what I do for a living. And while it was great to be able to spend all of that time on the dance floor for decades, I don't miss going out on my Saturday nights and lifting equipment and moving stuff and working my entire weekends. I love what I do. I get to do, I'm literally in my podcast shirt and my pajama pants, Gucci. So for me, it's a great career. So I feel very, very grateful to be able to do what I do for a living and be able to help other people share their message, across the globe.
Well, and I think that's what's cool is you do both, right? Everything you're articulated there, I find that opportunity is something to really take hold of and be grateful for, right? Every day, but to actually share and give back, that's where I personally get my energy from. And I think most of us really do. So awesome. I want to wrap by saying, I'm glad, Doug, that we connected. Super glad that you're on this podcast, because not only did I learn a lot, I know people who listen to this learned a lot, not just about podcasting, really about life. And that's been wonderful. It's been grateful. Love your show. Love what you're doing. Continue to make the world a better place. And I'm going to let you close the podcast with a lesson, something, maybe it's a quote, maybe it's a lesson from your parents, somebody in life that taught you something that you live your life by, what would that be?
Yeah, I'm going to start with two easy things. Number one, nice guys do finish first. So nice guys finish first. That's number one. The second thing is, if you don't think nice guys finish first, you don't know where the finish line is. And that's a quote from Gary Shandling. It's on chapter 1 of my book. And I really do feel that. I live every day like it. I try to be a nice guy, tell the truth, return my phone calls, and I've been rewarded and feel very, very blessed and fortunate to be able to do what I do for a living.
DJ, that was awesome. Thanks, brother. I'll see you on your show. Nice guys finish first, right?
Yep, exactly. Thanks, Gucci. Good to have you.
See you, buddy. Glad to be here.